pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Please join me as I pray. Again, Father, we're thankful for the blessings of this day and the privilege, as always, of living in this great country and great state and great community. And Lord, we know that in Romans 13, you have said that you have placed rulers over us, and we're to be obedient to their rule. And even though it was back in the days of the Romans, you still have placed leaders over us. We, the public, have elected these people to serve us, and we rely on them to make decisions on our behalf. And we just pray that you give them the wisdom and the understanding and the knowledge to make decisions that benefit all the taxpayers of this community. And we give you the glory in advance, for it's in your name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. We do have a quorum, but I have a roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Here.
Commissioner Casterline,
Here.
Commissioner Russo,
Here.
Commissioner Lombard,
Here.
Judge Mills.
Here. Do we have any? Oh, yes, we do. We have two signed up for the one. Ms. Jackson, would you like to come up?
Morning, Court Commissioners and Judge. My name is Katie Jackson, 2205 Monkey Road. I am also the commander of VFW Post 3904. Quick message for y'all. We've got Memorial Day coming up next Monday. The ceremony will be at 1400 in Veterans Memorial Park. Everyone is more than welcome to attend. We will also be placing flags on veterans' graves on the 27th, which is Thursday, meeting in Rockport Cemetery at 0800. Everybody is more than welcome to attend. Hope to see you there. We have one more event coming up that if you're interested, we're going to do a Coffee with Veterans event on June 5th at 9:00 at Main Street Coffee House, which is on Main Street in Church. Everybody's welcome to attend. On that one, we're going to be honoring our veterans that served during D-Day. Because D-Day is the next day. So everyone's welcome to attend. If you can come by, great. If you can't, just think of us on those days. Thank you much.
Appreciate your information. Ms. Arrington, you wanted to speak when it comes up?
I was going to speak when the item came up.
All right. We have a presentation from the 4-H Springs Summary Ag Life Extension Agent, Megan and Ginger. Come on up.
How are y'all this morning?
Great.
We got a presentation popping up so that Ginger and I can stay on track because our 4-Hers have been quite busy. We're going to start off with our A&H show, our Agriculture and Home Art Show results for our kids.
Yeah, that was in January and held at the Sandpot Fairgrounds as usual. We had a great year in livestock. We had two grand champions, Grand Champion Turkey and Grand Champion Pen of 3 Rabbits, and also a reserve Grand Champion with the single fryer rabbit. And we had a breed champion with hogs. And then at least as impressive and perhaps more impressive was our showmanship winners. Showmanship is impressive to me because they're not just showing the animals, actually they're kind of being judged. The kids are being judged on their knowledge of their species, of their specific animal project, you know, how to care for it, problems that might come up that they have to be ready for. And we had 4 showmanship winners, intermediate poultry, intermediate rabbit, junior poultry, and junior rabbit. So that was pretty cool.
In the home arts division, we were very competitive this year. Caitlin Cruz showed both those outfits that you see in those pictures. The jumpsuit, the red one, got grand champion. And the two-piece got reserve grand champion. And it was also awarded the Cotton Award, which she received $2,500 for that from local cotton gins in the area that they give to that award. That outfit was 100% cotton. And she also sewed that tree skirt that she's holding right there. And that also won a society award. She got a little bit of money for that as well. And this is
There's also a division for ag mechanics, which includes woodworking. And so we had a girl that won reserve grand champion with her storage.
And then our sister Madeline, she won first in county with this quilt that she made with the help of Sew by the Bay. They were our teachers this year. And she also got the Quilters Guild Award for that, and which earned her $250.
She's only 8 years old.
That was her first quilt. Madison Petterick also went to that workshop, and she got a first in county for her quilt, as well as the Society Award. Maddie Terhune, she sewed this costume that's in the center. It's an Alice in Wonderland costume. She got a first in county, was 4th overall, and was awarded the Society Award. And then Sydney Lopez, for her picture of a tarantula, she got reserve grand champion. And got a belt buckle for that as well. So we earned 3 belt buckles in the home arts division this year out of the 8 that were available. And then our Queens contestants, they represent each of our clubs, and Madden Kunstler represented the Aransas County 4-H Club, and Caitlin Sherman represented the Rockport Fulton Heritage Club. And into Spring Spectacular. We have 2 state 4-H qualifiers that competed at Spring Spectacular. They qualified for state. They will be heading to state contest in 2 weeks at College Station with the outfits that they've sewn. You saw those outfits earlier. They were at the A&H show. Maddie got first place in costume. Caitlin got first place in everyday living, and also first place in natural fiber. Those are 2 separate contests. Natural fiber and the fashion show are 2 separate contests, and she can enter that in the natural fiber contest because it is 100% cotton. And then Madeline Yanak, she had an educational presentation in the open category for family and community health. Her presentation was on what you need to pack in your sewing bag to be successful. Super cute. The judges loved it. And then Elizabeth Yanak with her educational presentation was an open and ag natural resources. Hers was on how to string your bow. Yes, and she did a great job, and she had a little bit of pretty good competition, and she got first place as well.
And this is a district meet.
Yes.
With 18 counties.
And this is a pretty new project for our kids. We've been doing it pretty actively since I've been here in the county. Our junior team, which is seen right there in the picture, they won 2nd place as a team. Their individual placings were Sophie had 8th place, Nathaniel had 1st place, and Madeline Yanak was 10th place. Elizabeth Yanak participated as an individual in the intermediate category for consumer decision making, and she got 9th place as an individual. And then we had a senior team with Maddie, Hunter, and Caitlin. Consumer decision making is like how to shop on a budget, and you have 4 items that you're looking at, and you place them in, what's the best item to the least best item for the scenario they're given. And then we have some state qualifiers in photography. They've already been entered, and they'll be judged in a couple of weeks. These are Caitlin Caruth's photos that she entered. These are Callum's 4 photos that he entered, and Kayla's 3 photos that she entered.
We had several kids that went to state level competitions. Maddie Terhune went to Houston Livestock Show for the archery meet. And this was the first time that the youth from Aransas County has participated. This is only the 3rd year they've held it, but it's a huge, overwhelming meet. And then Jessica Scheibe went to San Antonio with her lamb. This was her first year to even show. And we had 2 kids, Connor Hale and Santa Go, that went to Austin, San Antonio, and Houston to show their turkeys. And we had a very active archery project. They entered a lot of meets and did really well. This was the NASP meet. And also it's a state level one. Sophie Williams got 4th. This is her first year in archery. We had a number of great placings. And then our grand finale. There's a competition or whatever every year statewide. And we nominated the Hales, Danielle and Micah Hale, for the Salute to Excellence Award for our district.
And they won. They were chosen among many, many applicants, and the nomination for their work with our youth, the many hours and hours they put in and dedication. So we're pretty excited about that.
Micah is a club leader, and Danielle has been our livestock mentor for many years. And both of them are just always there to jump in to help with whatever we need help with and participate, and their kids are active. So we were very happy they
Right. We do all this work with the help of Darla Zuniga, who's our 4-H program assistant. She helped put this slideshow together for us today.
Well,
Thank you.
I got one question.
Yes, sir.
What's a pen of 3 rabbits?
That's 3 rabbits per market, and they have to be, they're judged on how similar they are, as well as, you know, how good your conformation is and all that for
So not necessarily litter mates.
production. No,
Or
they
it
don't.
could be.
They could be, but they often are, but they don't have to be. They just have to be similar.
I've never heard of
size.
a pen of 3 rabbits.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd like to commend you and
Oh, yeah.
the parents and especially the children participating in this. Y'all are doing a wonderful job and showing what a great county Aransas County is and what we can do with young people. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Judge Mills, I'd like to add to that. I was able to serve as a judge at the regional or one of the competitions and really considered it an honor. And I saw the young girl who did the sewing kit, and it was a great performance. And I think her older sister was showing how to string a bow, and it broke in the middle of the presentation. And she regained her composure and did an excellent job with a piece of equipment that didn't even work. So I'm glad she did well at the higher levels.
All right. We also have a presentation by Leadership Aransas County Class 24 on fundraising efforts for Another Chance.
And have to walk out the door with it. Valerie, you have to have a ladder to get.
I know.
I'm Valerie Gonzalez, as you all know. This is part of our class. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Carmen Michael.
Evelyn Guidry.
Kelly Blackwell, Reagan Gear,
Lucy Knott.
and we have a little presentation for you.
Hi, I'm Carmen Michael. Thank you guys so much for letting us talk to you today. So we started our very first session at Camp Aransas Zoo, and it was a meet and greet, kind of getting to know you, getting to know each other, and we learned a lot. We learned that we have a very diverse group. We talked about our backgrounds, we talked about our futures, our families. And like I said, we learned that we have a lot of diversity. But one thing that we did notice is that we had 2 things in common. We loved Aransas County and we loved dogs. That's what inspired us to do this project. Another amazing person who loves dogs in our county is Lori Caesar. Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners, Judge Mills. Many of us are committed to making a difference in our community because this is our home. In 2016, Tana started coming out to Aransas County Animal Control. She volunteered. She wanted to make a difference. In 2017, Jerry and her formed Another Chance Rescue with the mission of relocating dogs facing euthanasia by providing medical and foster care. At that time, the live release rate for Aransas County was less than 10%. It is because of their efforts, our live release rate now is 95%. We're happy to report as of this week, Another Chance sent 1,515 dogs out of our facility.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Judge Mills. My name is Reagan Gear. I'm with the leadership class, and I'm going to go through our project objectives. As Carmen said, we wanted to work with Another Chance Rescue because they are a nonprofit to provide the need that is not being met. That also benefits the community as a whole. We wanted to raise additional funds for the possibility of multiple projects to further enhance our community for both local residents and tourists alike. Most importantly, working together as a team to make a difference in our community. Then we came to Another Chance Rescue, RFT. Obviously, Another Chance Rescue, RFT, is a local nonprofit. Their volunteers assist Aransas County Animal Control in Rockport, Fulton, Texas. Their mission is to relocate dogs who are facing euthanasia by providing medical assessment and care, foster care, and transporting them to dog rescues. I thought this was an interesting statistic to share, which also helped our class get involved. The statistics show that $20,000 per dog goes back into the community if a dog is adopted through their lifetime. And again, all treatments are paid for by Another Chance Rescue by their own organization, not the county. Our project goals was to provide a freestanding building that is a minimum size of 10 by 10. And also to provide flooring, kennels, and air conditioning. Here is the building that we donated. It is a 10 by 10 Dirksen building. They are very excited. We are very excited. We also wanted to take this chance to thank you, the community, for all their fundraising efforts and helping assist us. Also, we wanted to thank Lori Caesar and her team and her officers for being the everyday heroes they are for making every life matter. We also wanted to thank Tana Neal with Another Chance Rescue and all of your efforts and everything that you do. And I can tell you guys that with our class working with these two organizations, it was a beautiful thing. They worked together. We could get all of our questions answered and everything. We just thank you guys for everything that you guys do. And thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. And as a dog lover, I commend all of you for what a great job you've done for the animals in need. Thank you.
Thank you. Another thing that happened that very first day, whenever we met at Camp Aransas Zoo, after we had our warm and fuzzy meet and greet, is they took us over to the ropes course, and it's this rock wall and a zip line. And so as we're walking over there, I'm thinking, hey, that's not so bad. It looks easy until we got to it. And this thing is huge. So they harness us all up, they give us our safety speech, and then they carry on and tell us that we're the first campers in over a year to do the ropes course and the zip line. And so I'm thinking, I can't do this. I am so scared. And then I looked back at these people that I had just met. I had just told them all of the amazing things about me. And I thought, what are they going to think if I don't do it? So that scared me even more. And so I did it. So I'm climbing, I'm about halfway up, and I'm thinking, hey, this is really easy. I got this. 3/4 of the way up, I think, hey, I must be there. And I look up and I'm there. This is awesome. Small voice inside of my head says, hey, don't look down. So what do I do?
No.
Crippling fear. I'm frozen in place. And then this teammate, these great teammates that I have, and this is only a portion of this, start cheering me on. That support and encouragement from them told me I could do it. So I get up to the top. I'm here. Yes, it feels great. And then that tower started wobbling. It is not as sturdy as it looks. And that thing runs through my head about, hey, we're the first campers to do this in a year. Have they been maintaining this? Because it's really moving. So again, I'm just frozen with fear. It's way scarier than it sounds. And again, my teammates telling me, you can do it, you can do it. And I knew I could because they believed in me. And so I did it, and it was great. So the reason I tell you that is because it kind of correlates to this project. When we first started talking about it, it sounded like a really fantastic idea. And then we started getting afraid. How are we going to do this? How are we going to get this done before graduation? How are we going to raise funds in COVID? And then our community started supporting us, much like our team. We want to thank you for that. These ladies, all of you, thank you so much for the support. You guys bought our t-shirts. You donated items, you purchased items, you came to our poker run, and you supported us and told us that we could do it, and we knew we could because of y'all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Questions?
Any questions for the ladies? No,
I want to thank Ms. Osteen and her office for helping us get this all together.
Thank you very much again for all you do for the dogs of Aransas County and for the people. We really do appreciate it. I do especially. Thank you. All right, under consent items, I'd like to pull the two proclamations for reading. But other than that, other motion.
Move to approve consent agenda item as listed, except for items 4 and 5 to be read separate.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Commissioner Laubach. Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castellan,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo. Commissioner Lava.
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous. All right, item number 4. Approved proclamation P09-2021 proclaiming June 2021 as Elderly Abuse Awareness Month.
Commissioners, Judge, this is proclamation P09-2021. Whereas people who are elderly or have disabilities have contributed to the general welfare of Aransas County by helping to preserve customs, convictions, and traditions of many people from diverse backgrounds. And whereas these residents are vital and integral members of our society and their wisdom and experience have enriched our lives. And whereas abuse of the elderly and people with disabilities in domestic and institutional settings is a widespread problem affecting hundreds of thousands of people across the country. And whereas in 2021, there were 86,614 completed cases of elderly and disabled persons abuse in Texas, of which 52,506 were confirmed. And whereas elder abuse is grossly underreported because the elderly who are being abused find it difficult to tell anyone and are usually ashamed and sometimes afraid. And whereas elder abuse happens to men and women of all income levels, all cultural and ethnic groups, whether they are in good health or incapacitated in some way, in poor neighborhoods and in suburbia. And whereas many of the cases investigated by Adult Protective Services in Texas involve self-neglect, and it is our duty as citizens to reach out to people in need. Now, therefore, we, the undersigned, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2021 to be Elder Abuse Prevention Month in Aransas County and urge all citizens to work together to help reduce abuse and neglect of people who are elderly or have disabilities. Thank you. And is there a Timothy Broom here?
Mr. Salinas
Would you
here.
like to come up and?
Morning, everybody. My name is Timothy Broom. I'm a caseworker / investigator with Adult Protective Services. I'd like to thank everyone here today for helping us raise abuse awareness. Elder abuse, it can be physical, emotional, sexual, and financial. It also includes people that are being neglected and those that neglect themselves, which are a large portion of the community that falls through the cracks. Raising awareness and taking steps to prevent abuse in our community is everybody's business. APS investigates abuse, neglect, and exploitation of adults 65 and older as well as those who are 18 who are substantially impaired. If you suspect abuse, neglect, or exploitation, report it. Getting nervous here. I need something to lean on. If you suspect abuse, neglect, or exploitation, as I said, report it. All reports are confidential and the abuse hotline is open 24/7. You can call 1-800-252-5400 or you can go online and report it. Once again, thank you for your help.
Make a motion to approve proclamation P. Huh? Oh, did you make a
Did you,
motion?
well, he accepted the two proclamations, so there's no motion yet.
Oh.
Okay.
All right.
I've been back.
Stand up.
Oh, I guess so. Okay.
Thank you.
I make the motion to approve proclamation number P09-2021.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Lava. Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lava,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous. Item number 5.
I move to approve proclamation P10-2021 proclaiming May 20th, 2021 as Stop the Bleed Day.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Cheney.
Okay, this is proclamation P10-2021. Whereas in a medical emergency, a seriously injured adult or child can bleed to death in just 3 to 5 minutes. Whereas rapid decision-making and controlling blood loss at the scene of an incident can mean the difference between life and death. Whereas Stop the Bleed training can help educate the public on controlling blood loss and can save lives in the process. In fact, effective bleeding control can prevent at least 20% of trauma deaths each year. Whereas on this day, we join Governor Greg Abbott in commending the many organizations who have partnered together to promote Stop the Bleed initiatives and teach the necessary skills to provide immediate bleeding control to victims at the scene of an emergency. And whereas on this day, Aransas County Commissioners would like to give a special thank you to Lieutenant Gavin Harrison of the Aransas County Sheriff's Office and Texas State Trooper Houston Yarberry for taking the time out of their busy schedules to provide county employees with Stop the Bleed training on March 29th and 30th of 2021. Now, therefore, Judge C.H. Burt Mills Jr. and the Aransas County Commissioners Court do hereby proclaim May 20th, 2021 as Stop the Bleed Day and call upon the people of Aransas County in recognizing and participating in this special observance.
Bubba made it.
I can tell you this man knows a lot about how to stop bleeding. Some of it hurts too.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Casterline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lava,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous. Item number 8.
I move to approve the purchase of and acceptance of a permanent, non-exclusive 50-foot wide drainage easement from Shelley and Terry S. Hunsaker, comprised of 1.510 acres of land out of a 13.09 acre tract out of the J. Fessenden Survey A65, being described as Tract 1 and 2 in a deed of record under the county clerk's file number 358032 in the official records of Aransas County, Texas, and authorize the payment of $20,000 and authorize the county judge to execute necessary documents.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, Commissioner Casterline.
I have a question about this.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
David and I spoke on Friday after I was reading the packet. And my understanding is part of the reason that we're making this payment is related to item number 4. Grantee may remove objects within the easement that interfere with the construction or impede the conveyance of stormwater. And my concern is, I think you mentioned that there were 4 heritage oak trees that will be taken down.
I don't know if they're heritage oak trees, but yes, there's.
And I am curious if there is not a revision of the easement that could leave those trees in place.
No, the property owner didn't want to lose trees, but he recognized this was the place that the easement really needed to go. It's along his back property line, so it's out of his way, and this is the right place for it.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
And David, this, you might want to elaborate, this will greatly improve the drainage and
Yes,
in
this,
that part of the
this,
county.
this fits in with the county's drainage plans, the master drainage plan. This is just another step going upstream. It's a good thing for us to have. Absolutely.
Where is it roughly? The survey name doesn't mean anything to me.
This starts at McClester Road across the street from where the new Hogan's Home development is and goes to 1781 right after that curve, just south of that curve.
Okay.
We've been working on this for quite some time, if I remember correctly.
10 years.
Yeah.
Long time.
All right. Any other questions? Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castleline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Nay.
Commissioner Lava,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye. 4 for, 1 against.
Yes.
Item number 9.
I move to approve the purchase of and acceptance of the permanent non-exclusive public access and drainage easement from Shelley and Terry S. Hunziker, comprised of 0.3566 acres of land out of a 13.09 acre tract out of the J. Fessenden Survey, A65, being described as Tract 1 and 2 in a deed of record under the county clerk's file number 358032 in the official public records of Aransas County, Texas, to authorize the payment of $10,000 and authorize the county judge to execute necessary documents. $10. I meant to say $10 and authorize the county judge to execute necessary documents.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and second. Commissioner Cheney, any discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castleline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lava,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous. Item number 10. I make motion to approve final plat of Ocean Reef subdivision, Unit 1, Lot 1 through 19, lots 59 through 65, and lots 78 through 95, 5.692 acres.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Commissioner Cheney.
I might make a comment on that they're doing a very good job over there and staying within the guidelines that they brought to us originally.
I have a question. What is the average size of the lot in that subdivision?
Kat, are you on?
Yes, sir. The average size lot in this subdivision is between 2,500 and 3,000 square feet. These are small lots, but they are part of the infrastructure improvements that they are doing is installing a lift station so that they will have public sewer to accommodate the smaller size lots.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castleline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lava,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous. Discuss, item number 11.
I move to approve 2021 chip spreader bid from the sole responder Cooper Equipment Company and authorize the purchase of the chip spreader for the bid price of $311,930.50.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Commissioner Laubach. Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castleline,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lava,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye. Unanimous. The county reports, item 12.
I move to approve establishing a steering committee and appointing members to, one, recommend a project or projects to be pursued and funded utilizing the American Rescue Plan Act funding and other funding sources with primary focus on broadband infrastructure. And two, review and recommend any other projects to pursue in the competitive funding category of this act.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, Commissioner Castleline. Any discussion?
I'd just like a little bit of an explanation of exactly what this is. I really didn't get a lot out of the minutes on it. What are we doing there, Commissioner Russo?
Well, there's the CARES Act money come in for, oh, well, there's Kim. Let her tell us. Kim, go
Morning,
ahead.
Kim.
Good morning. Thank you. Yes, this act was passed on March 11th of this year as part of the COVID recovery process. It includes $1.9 trillion of funding, and it goes to a variety of sources, including families, governments, schools, businesses, etc. Our allocation, there's two different forms of grant. There's what I call entitlement, which means it's non-competitive, and our allocation is $4.5 million. We received that in two different tranches. One, we've already received half. It came in last week. And then the other half will come in about 1 year. Also locally, there were other awards that were received. Rockport is receiving 2.3 million. Fulton is receiving 320,000 and Aransas Pass of 1.83 million. There are some limited uses for the entitlement funds. That's the 4.5 million that we're looking at. It can be to address any kind of expenses or deficits that were created by the pandemic. Also, it can fund water, wastewater, or broadband infrastructure. There is also an opportunity for assistance to small businesses, households, nonprofits, and specific industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. Right now, we're waiting on the guidelines for use of the funds. What we've gotten is limited to what's available on the website right now. The Treasury Department will be the administering the grant funds, and our obligation is to use the funds appropriately, as well as to send in reports on how we utilize the funds and the process that we're using. There is, yes, sir.
Kim, can you give us a couple of examples of what might do, especially under broadband? I know that everybody's concerned about the broadband that's coming in and whether or not it's going to be public access and you know, the loop.
Yes.
And what would be something that would not be eligible? I mean, would not fit under that loop, because it says in the agenda item that act funding of other funding sources with primary focus on broadband infrastructure. I'm not concerned. I'm just confused about what that means.
Oh, well, just that we're asking the committee to specifically look into the use of broadband. We have a fiber optic feasibility study that is going to be wrapping up at probably the first week of June. And one of the reasons why we want to go ahead and take a look at that as a specific option is this is a substantial amount toward funding the loop. We also want to start those discussions with all of our regional partners, because the regional partners are also receiving this funding. So when you take a look at the amount of funds that Aransas County is receiving, as well as all the other surrounding cities and counties, it adds up to enough to be able to fund the project, or at least highly leverage it for some of the other funding that's becoming available for broadband. So we're just asking.
No,
Yes,
whenever you keep saying help complete the funding for the whenever you're talking about broadband, I assume you're talking about the fiber optics loop.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We
I
are
thought that was
talking about the
funded.
backbone.
I thought that was funded.
No, we applied for a CDBG mitigation project, a statewide competition. We did not receive that in the first round. We will have to reapply in the second round. And so that is one of many. There is a lot of broadband funding financing and grants that are coming out right now. There's additional the Economic Development Administration has allocations that would allow broadband funding, and we're having conversations with the COG for a regional application that would be supported by the COG. There are other infrastructure pieces that are coming out in the federal legislation. And then there's already broadband funding set up at the national level. Also, the governor's office has been working on the broadband effort. They just adopted a broadband plan and are considering funding as well.
Okay, so as it sits today, we are not totally funded on the loop, on the backbone. Is that correct? Is that statement correct? Yes or no?
Yes, sir, that's correct. We
Okay.
currently
Law,
have
right?
no designated funding.
Yeah.
Okay, so what did we do several meetings back whenever we approved the project? I thought you said the funding was available then to do the project. Did I
We
misunderstand?
applied for
Turned
it.
down.
We just didn't get it.
Oh,
We approved
didn't get it.
applying for it.
Oh, well, that's nice to know at this meeting.
Well, we just got.
We just
word
found-
Friday.
Yeah.
That's what we said at the time. I mean, that's what I remember.
Okay, all right.
Just a
you
couple
tell
of
me
other
how-
things that this committee would be looking at. There's also competitive funds out there through the same act. And some of those may be interest to Aransas County. There's airport funding. I believe it was $8 billion in that category. Transportation funding, some small business support. And then also they're expanding the SBA Paycheck Protection Program. So there's a number of other items that the committee can take a look at and see if it meets any of our current funding needs and projects. And that's why we're recommending a committee to take a look at all of these items, both for the entitlement that we've already are receiving, plus anything else that we want to look at. On your agenda item memo, we've outlined some individuals that have expressed interest or have been nominated for being on the committee. Commissioner Russo had volunteered to serve on that committee as well. And so we're here to answer any kind of other questions that you might have.
Can you tell me, I'm looking at the list and on that list of entities are other entities that are also getting the same grant. I'm having a hard time understanding why we should be putting people on this committee that they're either the city, the town, or whoever, they're also getting the same grant.
Those entities were initially put on there because of partnership opportunities. For instance, there may be some that want to use their funds in order to help pay for the broadband. It's going to take more than what the county has received in order to do the broadband project. So we're needing to look for partners. They don't necessarily have to be on the initial committee. They could be brought on at a later time if that happens to be the recommendation of the committee. Then we could seek out the partners that are associated with those partnerships.
Commissioner Casterline, I would agree with you. My thoughts were the same as yours initially. I have talked about this with Kim and visited a little bit with the judge. So I am ambivalent about that, but I also feel if they're getting their own allocation under the American Rescue Plan, they'll probably have their own list of projects. I'm fine working together or not.
Well, I don't have a problem with us working together. I don't think they need to be on the county committee. I mean, if each one of those groups have committees, I can see them working together, but I don't think they necessarily need to be part of the committee that we put together.
I agree.
Okay. We can,
I'd like to be on the committee myself also.
all right. So do we want to talk about the other people on the committee?
I don't really think it's something like this. And I think Commissioner Russo and Commissioner Castleline both have very good points in this. It seems like the structure needs to be looked at a little bit more so we can at least maybe get some ideas from everybody so we can focus on one thing. Because if we piecemeal it, we'll end up, nobody will get anything or it'll be so small. So I would, Judge, I would suggest that we table this item and let Ms. Russo and Mr. Cashline sit down and come up with some ideas working with you in a workshop or something to find out, because this is real important.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, I've told people in my precinct, I'm sorry, I misunderstood that the backbone was a done deal. I mean, I understood that. I understood in the 2 or 3 meetings at a time. So if we're going to put something together, I think it's real important that the county know exactly what it wants to do. So we can.
Well, I don't see anything wrong with going ahead and approving the agenda. I'd have been coming back with the names on it.
Well, that would be fine.
Right.
Okay.
Because those were just proposed
Yeah.
suggestions.
All right. So the motion's been made and seconded, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castleton,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lava,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous. Item number 13.
I move to approve entering into a partial assignment and assumption agreement between Rockport Harvey Housing LLC, Pearl Point Phase 2 LLC, and Aransas County, which allows the assigner to assign its rights under a 381 Economic Development Agreement to Pearl Point Phase 2 LLC at no cost to the county.
I'll second that motion.
Motion seconded, Commissioner Cheney. Any
Yep.
discussion?
Can we hear from Jen Osteen? I generally understand assignments. The way they work is the assignor, the counterparty, which is the county, has to sign off on getting it. Basically, we're just substituting out one party and putting another party in.
Yes.
What do we know about the two entities? Do we know anything more about the S&E?
We have somebody here who'd be happy to speak about it, but I will say that it's essentially the company created an additional LLC for the second phase of the project and will be assigning its interest in the current contract to its new entity. So it's not that we're bringing in new business partners. It's the same people have formed a new entity for the second phase. Is that an accurate assessment?
We're basically just splitting a project into two. So you got one agreement with the first phase and a separate agreement with the second phase.
The original agreement.
You want to step in front of the mic? Please?
So the original agreement.
Tell us who you are, Mark.
Mark, I'm a co-manager of Rockport Harvey Housing LLC. And we completed, I'll show you our little schematic here. Completed lot 1 is the 4 Phase 1, and it's owned by Hurricane Harvey LLC. The whole property was bought under Hurricane Harvey LLC. So in order for us to get permanent financing on this piece, the lenders want to have this stand on its own.
Standalone.
And then this one stands on its own, and we're preparing to start construction right now for Phase 2 of the project.
So basically what you're simplifying it for your lenders.
Simplifying for the lenders.
But the whole project was originally approved conceptually by the county. And so you're just saying you're not changing what's going to happen. You're just changing who owns it.
I'm just changing, yeah, we had to separate it into 2 different entities. In fact, the whole property was done like that. We've had to change it around for our self-storage and retail site.
So the tax abatement terms are unchanged. We've just got a new entity on the receiving end, split in half. Okay.
Do you anticipate coming back to the court in the future for a third lot? Or are there just 1 and 2 lots?
It was only for 1 and 2.
Okay.
It was not for 3. 3 is it's not housing. It's
The commercial.
retail.
Yeah. So it's not subject to 381.
I don't believe it was ever.
No.
I think it was just 1 and 2.
Just the 1 and 2. Okay.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castleton,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Lava.
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 14.
I move to approve the April 2021 Treasurer's Report.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Casterline. Any discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney.
Aye.
Commissioner Castelline.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Lava.
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous. Item 15.
Move to approve 2020 annual financial report of Aransas County presented by Bauer and Company.
I believe
Second.
he's on the line.
Yes, sir.
There he is.
Second.
All right.
I second it.
And seconded, Commissioner Laubach, right?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm not quite sure. I guess you got a copy of did you get a booklet copy of the audit report?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
Yes.
If you would, let's turn to pages 1 and 2 of the report. And pages 1 and 2 of the report is our opinion letter. The primary purpose of performing an audit is expressing an opinion on the financial statements. This is our opinion letter. This is an unmodified opinion. There's basically 4 different kinds of opinions that can be given. And this is the highest form of opinion. It means simply that nothing came to our attention of a material nature that would cause us to qualify the opinion. And we're given everything we asked to examine. If you look on page 1 where it says auditor's responsibility, in that second sentence there, it says we conducted our audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America and the standards applicable to financial audits contained in government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States. What that means, we had 2 sets of rules that we had to adhere to when we performed the audit. The first set of rules or standards were for just regular audits and the second set of rules and standards were for single audits, and that single audits, it was a result of grant expenditures exceeding $750,000 last year. You were talking about grants earlier. If you expend over $750,000 in any one year, that would trigger a single audit, and that would trigger these second sets of standards. I might also add that every auditing firm, CPA firm in the country follows the same standards or rules. Next, if you would, let's just turn over to page 22 and 23 of the report. This kind of gives you a bird's eye view of the general fund, what transpired in the general fund last year. On page number 22 at the top is the revenues, you can see that the second column is the budget for the revenues. That third column are your actual revenues. That third column is your budget variance. And if that budget variance that has brackets around it, it's an unfavorable variance. If it doesn't have brackets around it, it means it's a favorable variance. So starting at the top of page 22, you can see that your actual revenues last year in the general fund was $16,044,000 compared with a budgeted amount of $16,370,000. So the revenues came in under budget by $326,000. In that last column, you can kind of look at all the items. I think most of the items were under budget. And then below that are your expenditures in the general fund, and they're broken down by different departments. Most of your departments came in under budget, including the sheriff's office and the jail, which would be at the bottom of page 22. See, jail came in under budget by $492,000, as did the sheriff came in under budget by $98,000. On page 23 is the tail end of the expenditures. A couple items I want to just point out here. If you look in that the second column, 3 lines from the bottom, you had a budgeted loss of $194,256 last year. You actually had a gain last year, overall gain, where your
where your revenues exceeded your expenditures by $1.283 million. So you had a positive budget variance of $1.477 million. And that variance was created by the fact that your expenditures came in under, total expenditures in the general fund came in under budget by $1.9 million. If you go up about 5 lines from the bottom on page 23, you can see in that third column, your total expenditures was $15,223,000 last year, compared with $17,142,000 budgeted expenditures. So you came in under budget by $1.9 million. So if you look in that third column again, 2 lines from the bottom, you began the year with a reserve of $6.445 million. You increased that reserve by $1.283 million. You had an end of the year reserve of $7.7 million. And if you compare that to your expenditures last year, which is about, again, that third column, about 6 or 7 lines up, $15,223,000, you have over a 50% reserve, ending reserve in your general fund. And generally anything over 25% reserve is considered good. The rule of thumb is 25%. So the general fund is in very good shape. I'm oftentimes asked, how you build up reserves in the county government, and really the true way, or the way that always seems to work, is when you budget conservatively, which you did. Even though you budgeted a loss of $194,000, that's not much of a loss. I've seen budgeted losses in the $3 million range, and so you budget conservatively and then stay within the expenditure budgets where you build up reserves in the general fund.
Mr. Rock,
yes.
I missed something. When say again the number for the percentage of the reserve. I thought you said a 15% reserve. But did I not?
50. I'm sorry, 50.
Okay, and anything over 25 is good.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
It's a little over 50. I don't have the exact number, but you can tell by what you're comparing them. Yes. On page 24 is your road and bridge fund. Again, if you look in that third column, I'm not going to go through the budget, but if you look in that third column, 3 lines from the bottom, it gained last year by $68,000. You had a beginning reserve of $1.293 million, and that gave you ending reserve of $1.361 million. And again, if you take that number, compare it to your expenditures, which is about 5 or 6 lines up, of $2.5 million, you have, again, we have over 50% ending reserve in your road and bridge fund. Okay, and if you would, just turn over to page 25. And that is your flood control fund. In that fund, again, you had, if you're looking at third column, 3 lines up, you had an increase in reserve of $38,000. You had a beginning reserve of $2.260 million, and that gave you an ending reserve of $2.298 million. And if you compare that to your expenditures, which were last year $205,571, that's that third column, about 6 or 7 lines up, you have about a 1,000% coverage there. So that's well over 25%. So anyhow, looking at the general fund and the road and bridge funds, you are in very, very good shape financially. If you look on page 28 in the report, these are your proprietary funds. You have 3 of them. The 2 I'd like to kind of look at would be your airport fund, which is the first 2 columns on either page, and the transfer fund. If you look on page 28, in that first column, 2 lines from the bottom, where it says unrestricted, your unrestricted equity in your airport fund was $293,000 last year. If you go to the second column just to the right, which would be the prior year, your equity was $346,161. So it stayed about the same, went down a little bit, but not too bad. And that third column is your transfer station equity. You had $160,691 last year. And the previous year, you had your equity was 122,000. So your equity actually went up in that by about $38,000. On page 29 is the income statement for your airport fund, transfer fund. They have a commissary fund here. In your income statement, you can see in that first column is the profit and loss for the airport fund last year. If you're looking at first column, 3 lines at the bottom, you actually had a loss last year of 563,000. That mainly is precipitated by you have depreciation of $683,000. You probably didn't have a cash loss. But you had a book loss because of the depreciation. If you look in that first column, go up to about middle of the page where it says depreciation. Your depreciation last year was $683,000. If you look in that second column, the prior year, you had a loss in the airport fund of $126,000. And I think the main difference between the two is you can see, if you look at the very top under your operating revenues, if you look in that first column, you had revenues of $807,000 compared to $1.267 million the prior year. So I'm sure that the COVID thing had a huge effect on the revenues in that fund. And then that third column, your transfer station, 3 lines in the bottom, you had a loss of almost $13,000 last year, compared with a gain the previous year, $26,000. A couple other items I want to point out to you is if you turn over to page number, find it here. If you looked at page 54 of the report, it's a schedule of the debt of the county at the top of page 54. You will notice there's about 8 columns. 8 columns. That first column, if you look at the grand total, you had a grand total beginning debt of $21 million last year. And that's made up of all different kinds of debt. That would be debt. If you look at the very top, you had certificates of obligation. You had revenue bonds, $1.8 million. You have what you call net pension payable debt, and then you have compensated absences, which is your accrued but untaken vacation. And if you look over to the 6th column, the 6th column would be the end of the year debt. You know, if this is broken down into governmental activities, and then it says business type activities. That business type activities basically would be the transfer station, the airport. But if you look in that 6th column, you had end of the year debt of $18,985,000, almost $19 million. And I can say that there are entities that we look at that are probably, I would say, almost 1/10 the size of Aransas County that have almost that much debt. So as far as it being a lot of debt, it's really not compared to the size of your county. But you have certificates of obligation, $13,219,000. You have revenue bonds of $1.7 million. You have a notes payable in that 6th column. You see notes payable $1.9 million. What that is, that's that general land office, that GLO debt. And that money, even though you received that money in the form of a loan, any expenditures of that money is considered grant expenditures for purpose of the single audit. The net pension payable, you can see the net pension payable decreased significantly last year from $2.9 million in the governmental activities down to $764,000. I was questioned by a commissioner last year. What happened? Why was it the net pension payable debt so much last year? And he called me back after the meeting, and it was because of bad investments by the TDCRS. That's your TDCRS, that's your pension plan there. Compensated absences, you had $298,000.
Is that the fact that the number is so much better this year? Do you think that also?
Yes, and I was going to show you in a little bit what happened this year. Yes, exactly. They had a turnaround. They had better investments, and In fact, let's just go over to that page 67 of the report. I'll show you what happened. You know, and Aransas County is not the only county that got hit last year. All the counties did. But if you look on page 67, in the second column where it says fiduciary net position, you all see that. And if you go down that column where it says net investment income, you see $4.5 million. So that is the main reason why that the debt or the net pension liability decreased so much last year because of that investment income was so high, $4.5 million.
And that chart at the bottom shows how vulnerable our position is to changes in the discount rate, in other words, the interest rate environment.
These are, actuaries calculate this and they use about 15 to 20 parameters. But one of the big ones is that interest rate right at the bottom, that discount rate, the 8.10%. Yes. You can see the fluctuation. You can see the fluctuation here.
Help me understand what it would mean if we started to use a 9.1 discount rate. In other words, we reflected higher interest rates in the general economy. What's the 2.5 million negative number mean to us?
That would mean that would be accounts receivable to the county from the TDCRS plan.
So that would be a good,
very good thing.
Development for us.
That puts you over 100% covered.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's just go back to page 61 for a second. I'll just show you what your plan actually did look like. It's page 61. If you look in that second column, the right-hand column at the very top, these values are always calculated at the end of the year. We don't have the 2020. We didn't have the 2020 information, so this is a year behind actually. As of that date, the pension liability was $32,514,000 in the plan. This is your total amount owed from the TDCRS plan as of that date. Your fiduciary net position, that'd be your cash and cash equivalents. So it's $31,720,000. So that's where your $794,000 is generated. You can see as of that date, you're 97.56% funded. Last year is just to the left there. You can see last year you were funded 89.85% last year. And both those years, even though you may think that's a lot, the average amount that I see is about 85% funded. So you are over that. You're over that percentage both years. Okay, one other area here I want to just kind of go over is in the back is the single audits. If you go to page 95 and 96 of the report, there's a schedule of the grants. And as you can see, and as you discussed earlier in this meeting, you have several different types of grants. I know that the mitigation grant was discussed. If you look on page 96, you can see if you go up about 15 lines or so, you can see where's your hazard mitigation grant was the amount of expenditures were for last year. This mitigation grant, as the ladies, Ms. Kim Fouts had mentioned, is part of a CDBG grant. They have the same CFDA. Now, if you look at it, says 14,228, and these all fall within the same CFDA number. That's the number that the federal government assigns to that particular grant. But the total amount of expenditures for this CDBG grant was $2.727 million last year. And that would have been cause that to be the major grant. When you look at these grants, when we test these grants, we have to determine which grant is going to be a major grant. And the 2.7, the CDBG grant, since it had $2.7 million of expenditures, it was well over half of the total grant expenditures. If you look on page 96 at the bottom, of $5,074,000. So that was a grant that we actually tested last year. But these are all the different grants. The COVID, trying to find the COVID grant on here. Here, a COVID grant is at the bottom of page 95, the very bottom. That'd be the CRF, they call this CRF grant, 21.019 CFDA number. The expenditures for that grant was $611,270. Had those expenditures been over $750,000, we would have tested that grant also. So anyhow, this is a summary of the grants for last year. And finally, at the very, very end of the report, page 106, this is kind of a list of findings. We're required to submit this list of findings. This report is going to be filed with the Single Audit Clearinghouse, which is the National Register for Single Audits. I believe it's in Indiana. And this is a required page on page 106. We're kind of giving a list of the findings here. And we had, other than just the rudimentary stuff, telling them what grant was a major grant, there were no findings. We had no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies or any kind of other kind of comments for the report. The ladies that went over there, and they had no comments or no findings. And that's my report.
Awesome. Thank you. I'd just like to say that thanks to the Auditor's Department, the very frugal elected officials and department heads in this county, we put money back in the general fund again. We do that most every year. I don't remember the year we haven't done it. But don't remind me if there was one. All right. All right.
We're blessed to have a really professional group of folks that both the elected and the appointed officials, but all the way down to the basic grassroots. I mean, you know, I go out to the transfer station 3 times a week. You know, it's always clean and people are always friendly and you know, I drive the roads. I put our roads against anybody in Texas. You know, we go to the animal control. It's clean, it's neat, it's well-staffed, everything. Environmental services is excellent. I will compliment the attorneys and the stuff done. This is not an easy job to be a county commissioner, but with folks like you, it's worthwhile and it makes it a lot easier. It could be a lot harder. And I want to thank you personally.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Mr. Castro,
Aye.
Commissioner Arusa,
Aye.
Commissioner Lava,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous.
Judge, may I say something?
Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to thank everyone for helping us with the budget and with the expenditures. But I do want to commend my staff. They work very hard to make sure that we do everything correctly and that we have everything the auditors need. And it is a team effort.
Yes, ma'am, and you have quite a team.
Thank you.
All right, item 16.
I move to approve revising the test vesting schedule for Texas County and District Retirement System, TCDRS, for eligible employees from the current 10-year option to a proposed 8-year option, with the change to become effective January 1st, 2022.
A motion, do I have a second?
I'll second. I'm not sure what we would be, how far we would be going if we approved this motion today. If what we're talking about is just walking through it and trying to figure out how much it would cost and what effect it might have on retention of employees, I'm comfortable doing something like that today. A final approval, I think, needs to wait until we've had more of a chance to study the financial effect.
I don't think that's the way it's written, is it?
No.
No, this is for action.
In that case, I have no problem with discussing it today, but I would move to table it until we've had a further chance to examine it. Unless we can find out as much information as we need today, which is possible. I don't know who is planning to come and speak to us about the ramifications.
I have some information for you.
Okay.
You did second it then?
I did second it.
Okay. All right. What's your information?
All right. In your packet, you received a printout, plan customizer for plan year 2022, which shows what the impact would be as far as what the contribution rate is that the county pays alongside with the county employee. Next year, if we stay with the current 10-year plan, our contribution will be 10.07%. And that's on the first page of that document. 4/5 10.07. And that's if we stay with the current 10-year plan. If we go to the 8-year investment program, the contribution rate would be 10.52%, which is an increase of 0.0045 or less than 0.5%. So what impact does that have on the budget? I asked the auditor to provide me with that information. And for the current year, total salaries are $10,310,413. If we stay with the 10-year vesting at the 10.07 contribution rate that the county pays, the amount that we would pay would be $1,038,200. If we change and go to 8-year vesting for next year, the contribution rate, the 10.52%, then what we would pay would be $1,084,655. The difference, lower the vesting schedule for 2 years, by 2 years. The difference for next year alone on salaries based on the estimate from the auditor's office is $46,396 for the year. Now, when I was the HR director, I brought this item to the court, and that was about 5 or 6 years ago. What I would like to share, and then if there are department heads who are present and have a yes or no about this or want to provide input, I would welcome it. But TCDRS works with almost 800 county and district employers, over 320,000 employees, and then 70,000 retirees. So we're talking nearly 800 employers. Those are other counties, those are districts, appraisal districts, water districts, emergency service districts. Of that, about 94% of those 800 members of TCDRS have the 8-year vesting. The remaining 6% are split between a 5-year and a 10-year, and it's about equal. What I was proposing before was to recruitment and retention of employees, especially at an upper level, whereas a person could see perhaps spending 8 years and being vested versus having to be here for 10 years to become vested. Most corporations vest within 5 to 6 years, and they vest on a percent each year, 20% the first year, 40% the second year, and so on. With TCDRS, you are 0% vested until you hit whatever the county determines as the level. So currently, you pay in for 9 years and 364 days. You have 0 vesting until you hit your 10-year mark. That can be a disincentive to some attractive candidates for employment or encouraging employees to stay. At the time I proposed this, one of the commissioners asked CJ Wax, who was the current mayor of Rockport, who was sitting in the audience, what his take on it was, since the city had just looked at changing their vesting schedule. And Mayor Wax's response essentially was, what Mrs. Rousseau said is correct. We changed ours to a 5-year vesting schedule, and it is a 5-year vesting schedule with the city. I'm not looking for something that extreme. I am thinking a 2-year reduction would be an additional recruitment tool and possible retention tool. And as I mentioned, the difference on the budget for next year, based on our salary, is $46,396. That's it.
Linda, do you have some stuff on this? also?
Linda, would you come up? right, I think it was, so I was told or read somewhere that it would cost over $500,000 to the taxpayers of Aransas County to do this change. Is that somewhere in right?
Let me get my notes here real quick, sorry. So last year, actually this year, our contribution rate is 8.75%. For next year, we're already looking at an increase from that 8.75% to 10.07% for 2022. And that's going to reduce our funded ratio from 91.3% down to 89.2%. That's a change we can't control. It's going to happen because of COVID and the interest rates dropping and all kinds of different factors that have affected that.
But the point is that our contribution rate, staying where we are for next year, is going over 10%, correct?
It is.
All right, thank you.
But I ran the numbers through TCDRS's plan customizer to see what the difference would be from 2022's current already rates that we're going to be looking at versus changing it to an 8-year vesting, and to see how much that would cost the county overall. We would be looking at $575,000 to make that change in order to get our ratio back down to where it's going to be level with, and to bring our funded ratio back to normal.
Are you saying in 1 year?
No, that's over the course. It's going to cost $575,000
Over the course of what?
of the TCRS retirement, which anytime you make a change, it takes 15 years for it to.
So that's a 15-year number.
And that's also based on whether or not we stay where we currently are, because with COVID and the interest rates and what's happening with the economy, there's no guarantees what's going to happen with those numbers either. So
I, I haven't been as HR as much as Commissioner Russo has, certainly, and I certainly wouldn't argue with any of her figures. But from my observations is that whenever you're getting a young employee, now we're talking about two different types of employees. We're talking about professional employees that are here, and plan on staying, and I can see where a shorter vesting cycle might work. But what our problem is retention, and our retention is at the lower. I had rather see some sort of employee incentive to come and work with us and do a good job and be safe and be a responsible member, to something like an additional vacation day or maybe a couple of vacation days at their choice. There's a move on to add another vacation to the standard schedule. I'm not really in favor of that, but if you got somebody out there that's worked a year, that's had no accidents, nothing, everything is exactly where it does. They've done a good job. They don't have any serious write-ups in it. I don't have a problem with giving them a personal day off sometime during the year. And, if they come out and on the 264th day, they get a speeding ticket in a company vehicle, then they don't get that day. You got to have a year or a time frame to have at least one day. And maybe if that works, I think that doesn't cost us any more money. It costs us a little bit of labor time. It could cost us a little bit, especially like in the sheriff's office in the jail or something, it could cost us a little bit of overtime. But I think that's a real incentive. And I think we do need to look at different types of incentives.
Well, on that line, SHRM, our Society for Human Resource Management, had a survey that they did Less than 22% of our workforce consists of traditionalists and baby boomers, which is 57 and older. 70% of our workforce actually consists of the Generation X and the millennials. They want something completely different than what the traditionalists and the baby boomers were looking at. The baby boomers did want that retirement. They did want that comfort zone to know that if I'm going to work for a company, I'm going to get that retirement. I'm going to be able to live well in my future. The younger generation doesn't believe in that retirement, nowhere near like the older generations did. By their studies alone, it shows that the younger generation are more interested in flexible schedules, time off, career progression based on competency and seniority, not rank. I'm sorry, based on competency instead of seniority and rank. They want to be known and shown that the employer cares about them. Now, Pat said that she would like to see the retention for the upper level managers for the TCRS.
No, I want it for everyone. I just said it may be more attractive to the higher level
You did
pay.
mention though that for the upper level, you thought it'd be more attractive. We don't have a retention problem with the upper management. We have a retention problem with the lower. The regular employees is where we have our retention issues. And when we did our survey, it did show that only 21% of the employees were interested in this TCRS, which kind of matches up with the numbers that SHRM's survey did as well.
What was your sample size?
Let me pull my sheet here.
And when was that survey conducted?
I was able to get it done over the last couple of weeks. I got my notes here. Sorry, too many pages. 74%. I was able to survey 159 out of 216 employees that are part of TCDRS, and that does include, that 216 actually includes part-time employees as well. So that 74% is not all full-time employees. That's 74% of the employees across the board.
So if my arithmetic is correct, 575,000 over a period of 15 years is about 38,000 a year. I was hoping we would hear today from department managers who could talk to us about trouble they're having with recruitment and retention.
We have one, Ms. Arrington.
Thank you. Commissioner Laubach, I may not hit exactly on what you were hoping for, but I did sign up to speak on this item. So first off, I want to say I was there back in 2014, 2015, whenever Ms. Russo brought this up. I also want to say, however this vote goes, I am not affected personally. The vesting situation in 2022 does not make a difference to me, my own retirement personally. However, that being said, I think you have to look at not only what works for you, but what is right for other people. And I have always sort of disliked the idea of, well, I put in my time, so everybody has to go 10 years. I will say, I would like to comment about Linda's survey, and I think that's a great first step. I think there's some flaws in that, and I don't think we can necessarily say with certainty that we've got 74% who feel this way or this, because the way the survey was, it was very geared toward ageism, in my opinion. I took the survey, and it's really, you're only going to be able to select one item. So if you're the younger person, you're going to select the thing that affects you most currently. If you're the older person, in general, you're going to select the thing that affects you personally. I would like us to look at maybe the bigger picture, because I think Pat is on the right track here. Personally, I think we should look at 5 years rather than 8 years, just because of where our competitiveness is. And if you look at people who come to this community, a lot of people come here in their later years and they might not consider coming to a job and looking at it from competitiveness of, okay, maybe I can work at the city of Rockport, maybe another city, maybe another entity, appraisal district, what have you. Why would I want to come where I can't get any retirement? Maybe they only have a few years that they want to work until they find out what a great job it is, and maybe they want to continue on. Investing is not the only thing for them, but I think we want to look at what is valuable in terms of recruitment, what is valuable in terms of respect for employees. How do you don't get anything taken away. It's not like you work for 5 years or you work for 8 years, you work for 10 years, and that's enough to retire on. You're only doing what you put in and then the match. Pat mentioned 5 to 6 years with in the private sector. My experience with the private sector has been 3 to 5 years of people who actually match, and a lot of times match at a higher level, 2 to 1, than what the county's matching at. As far as millennials and other people younger than me, if they want flex time, they want these things. I think that part of what we need to do, both for ourselves, both for the court, which I've heard some expression of, you want to have information, but I think one of the things that we need to do is also share information with our employees and talk about what this means to you. I think in general, people don't quite understand, and they don't get that this is what it's going to be, the value of it for you in retirement. You also have situations of people who work for electeds. You have situations and they put in a lot of time, they do a great job, but it's not a guarantee that they go to the next person. So should that person, I guess, be penalized for the great job that they did and it doesn't transfer over? There are things like that to consider. I think the whole package, I think Linda was really just on the beginning of looking at all of these things. And I think we need to, as a group, talk about them. And I think people who don't value retirement haven't really been given information, well. And, you look at it and there's a lot of people who are older who went way beyond what they had to do as far as vesting goes, because there are people like me who like to work. And, maybe retiring sounds like this wonderful, wonderful thing, but, maybe your favorite day on the beach is not equal to this contribution that you feel that you're giving as an employer, as an employee, to the bigger picture. So the idea that people just want to retire because they can, I think we need to look more of it at the beginning side of, it's a recruitment tool, it's respect for employees, it's what do we do, why, if they're going to consider us versus somebody else, we would like to level that playing field. And I know I've said a lot of things here. Let me see. I think that's probably it. But I think this is an important first step. The 8% is certainly better than nothing. But I really think that we ought to take Linda's, the things that she talked about and look at and even talk to the employees about what these all mean to them. And if you're only choosing one, I just don't think that that's a fair assessment of what is valuable to people.
Thank you. My mistake was thinking that the survey was asking employees if they were interested in changing from 10 to 8 year. Apparently, it was giving them a laundry list of selection when we really are not offering a laundry list of selections right now.
I mean, it's interesting to find out what's the most important thing. So giving people a list and saying choose one is that's information. But I too would be interested in hearing what employees think about retirement, even if it's, ranking it among 6 or 7 other things.
Right.
Because you don't know if it's
This
number
was
2
just
for
to
everybody,
see
for instance.
What kind of benefits employees are actually interested in, not to measure TCDRS or anything else. It was a survey to find out, because if we're talking about benefits, I do believe that it is a good idea to offer benefits that employees want, that can do retention and things along those lines. The problem is that one, we need to know what the employees are interested in. If we're just going to go ahead and make changes to the benefits without getting their input, what are we accomplishing?
I'm just
I agree
suggesting
with-
getting their input includes not just asking them to name one thing they're interested in, but finding out where
No, it wasn't just one thing. There was a list of different possible benefit options that they could rank according to what they might be interested in the most. And there was 8 of those, and they could rank all of those different things. And then at the bottom, there were 3 major that cost the county a significant amount of money to choose from. One of them was TCDRS.
So what do we find out about where retirement vesting schedule fits in the ranking of employee interest?
48% of the staff would prefer a 5% COLA over TCDRS. That's pretty much where, if they had to choose between the two,
Money in
they
the
would
pocket
prefer
versus
money in
interest.
their pocket. And it comes down to, you're looking at 70% of your work staff, 70% of your workforce that's available out there are younger people. They're trying to survive day to day, paycheck to paycheck. 20, 30 years down the road for their retirement is not what's on their minds. And if they're getting retirement and they're working, 2 more extra years makes no difference to them. Yes, they like the retirement, they're glad it's there, but 2 more years really doesn't make that much of a difference.
Do we know how many employees preferred an 8-year vesting over a 5% COLA?
It was 21% chose the COLA versus 21% chose the TCDRS versus 48% chose the COLA.
And the rest were no opinion?
When you're talking about they chose a raise over even being in the retirement system? Is
No,
that what
not
you're
over
talking
being in
about?
the retirement system.
Over a change from 10
Just
to 8.
making a change to the
Oh.
retirement system.
What would a 5% COLA raise cost?
5% payroll, whatever it is.
For 2022, a 5% COLA raise would cost $504,148.
Okay, so we know that the employees in general would rather we spend $500,000 on them every year than $40,000, but we're not finding out how much bang for the buck we'd get for 1/10 the cost. I need information about the impact. I mean, I'm always interested in employees' welfare but from a point of view of controlling the budget, what I have to consider most is what impact does it have on retention of employees we want to keep, and what impact does it have on recruitment of employees we want to hire? And I don't yet have information from department heads about how hard it is to either keep employees or recruit new ones without a change like this.
I can tell you this, in 2020, we had a 15% turnover across the board. We had 11% turnover. I'm sorry, and 11% of that was not including the jail. So 11% across all of the counties or all the departments but the jail, and 15% including the jail. This year alone, already to date, we have 15% across the board, and 8% of that is minus the jail.
Turnover. You're still,
Right.
right.
So
Is that would you call that a high or a low number?
Jail is actually doing better than the rest of the departments in some ways.
Is a 15% turnover something that concerns us? I don't know how a high rate we should
It's
expect.
not bad. It's not a bad rate. No.
How does it compare to other counties, for instance?
Some
That's
of the
prob-
counties,
it's probably pretty close, I would imagine.
yeah, most
What-
counties
and-
range in
and
there.
One of the things that bothers me is we're making these long-term decisions. I don't mind making a long-term decision, but at a time whenever we really don't know what's going to happen next year or anything else, we're coming out of COLA. They've got
The economy is
ads
very weak right
everywhere
now.
for workers.
Mhm.
And, they're starting them at anywhere from $10 to $18 an hour with no skills at all. And you get some skills in there and you're up to $20, $25 an hour to start. So I don't think we cannot compete with Bostapina or Chenier or any of the plants or anything. We can't compete with them. But what we can do is give a good stable place to work, a place where they're appreciated, and a place where they know as long as they're doing their job, they've got a job.
Right.
And I think, I've never have been one to go from one job to the other for $3 an hour or something like that. But I would go in my younger days for somebody that had an extra day, a personal day, or something that I could earn.
Right.
One of the difference between my generation and some of the younger generations is we understood the need to earn it. But some of these people they think, well, if he got an extra day off, just because I had a wreck or I got a DWI or I had, some not using my safety equipment or whatever, I ought to get it too. That's not the culture that I think we want to create. We want to create a culture that you make a good living, as good as what we can afford. You live in a beautiful place. You know that you've got a job if you show up to work and everything. And I think, like I said in the beginning, a personal day or even 2 personal days a year based on their performance. And I'm not talking about David's perception of whether or not they're a good employee. I'm talking about the empirical data. Did they show up on time? Did they treat the equipment with the proper use of the equipment? Did they wear their safety equipment? Did they not get a ticket for a year or whatever? That's empirical. That's something we can look at and say, you didn't get it because you didn't do this.
Right.
Or you got it because you did. And
I would love to discuss the survey. It gave lots of different options and we basically looked at.
It was a good survey.
We basically looked at things.
I will say that I asked Linda to do this survey thinking like she does, that why don't we get the feel of the employees of what they want instead of putting something on them that they don't really care about or understand or.
How many employees responded? How many total employees do we have?
We have
216 and 159 employees.
216 that are part of TCDRS.
Well, I don't care about that.
And 159 of them were surveyed.
Okay.
So no, I was not able to get everybody.
But you got
the one,
you got 169 to 217. That's 75%, pretty close.
right. One thing that I would really like to point out, and then,
That's pretty good.
other than talking about the rest of the survey, we're talking about changing our vesting from 10 years to 8 years, and yet employees have to wait for 10 years to be employed here before they even get a 3rd week of vacation. Vacation, extra time off, flexible work schedules is what most of the employees have stated they're more interested in. Those are things that don't cost the county money, where a 5% COLA, TCDRS changes those costs a significant amount. That was my only main point that I wanted.
I would counter that paid days off do cost the county money.
Paydays, extra paydays do, yes, but we're already giving 3 weeks of vacation. Changing when they're able to use that really doesn't make a change. Giving them flexible schedules of being able to work 4 10s instead of 5 8s, those types of things do not cost the county any extra money. And those are things that the employees are interested in.
David, y'all are on 4 10s during the summer.
Yeah. Not anymore.
Have been on 4 10s in the past. We have not.
How do you think, did the employees like that?
They did for the most part.
Yeah.
Some people
Just can't please. Yeah.
There are a couple of kinds of information I would like to have before either rejecting or accepting this proposal. One is I would like to know employee preference between things that cost us a comparable amount of money. And so instead of a 5% COLA, that would be, I think, 0.5% COLA, because it's about 1/10 of the cost of the, hang on for a minute. It's about 1/10 of the cost of doing the COLA is the cost of the 8-year vesting change. And the other is much more detailed information from department heads about their difficulties in retention and recruitment. I mean, examples of employees they lost that they think they might have been able to keep if they'd had better vesting. or employees that they tried to recruit and lost out to somebody with a better vesting program. For that reason, I'm going to renew my idea and in fact formally move that we table this until we can collect more information. I think that the survey that you did gave us some very valuable information, but it was not geared to answer the specific questions I have in my mind that would help me answer this
To
question.
answer the first question that you asked, there was a portion of the survey that asked them whether they would prefer to have some of the 8 options that were low cost to the county or the larger cost, and it was about 50-50, right down the middle. I think my numbers came out 48 and 49 or somewhere along there. So it was pretty evenly split.
We do have department heads here if anyone would like to speak.
I'd like to say one other thing, and I think that one of the things that we potentially as department heads, potentially as the whole organization, that we maybe don't do the very best job at is explaining what this means to a person versus that. You can give people benefits, but if they don't understand what the benefit really is, it's like, you're comparing apples and oranges. You don't know in the scheme of things. Right now, you say, well, I'm living for today. This is what happens for me today. But I think if you really talk about it, and this is, in my opinion, a lot of people don't have financial literacy. And I don't think we do favors to people by giving into maybe a short-term idea if we haven't given them the bigger picture of what really do you want your life to look like when you are not working. And maybe that's only important to baby boomers and older, but if it is, I think that's a conversation that should be had, and maybe we just don't share enough information. Even with the people who are retiring, to look and say, well, you're eligible to retire. However, if you stay on for this much longer, this is what your retirement will look like. And I don't know, I think people are making a lot of decisions without information.
Well, I think a lot of the stuff we're talking about, including this agenda item, is really something for budget. Part of the budget workshops. I would think that Linda, or we need to, between now and then, doing more surveys or whatever you need to do to find out what employees want. And we're not talking, this agenda item isn't talking about start until next year's budget anyway. So to me, that's really the time to finalize what we're going to do. If it be some extended benefit or changing the vesting or whatever, I would kind of agree with Commissioner Laubach that we either table it or go ahead and vote it down, and it can be put back on or done during the budget process.
You want to second my motion to table then?
I will do that. Yeah.
I'm not a department head, but if I may just really fast, we've talked about forming a committee to work on the employee handbook. And as a matter of fact, I'm sitting on that committee. As a non-department head, but who's very interested in this topic, what about forming an employee committee to discuss benefit changes and picking people from different parts of their career, people who are close to retirement, people who are brand new employees, maybe getting a mix of people with different backgrounds and diversity. I don't want to assume that people don't know what the best choice is for them.
Yeah.
I want to assume that people make the best choice for themselves given their specific circumstances. And I think that getting a big slice of our employment and having those people together, those employees, and having those people together is something that could be quite valuable.
Yeah, and also too, we've got a good workforce. We've got a positive budget balance and everything, and we've got some smart employees. And I agree with Ms. Osteen that we need to do this soon.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
You might take the top 3 or 4 questions that you have, take this conversation that we have and form another survey with the judge and get it out as soon as you can. And let's do that. And then let's have a workshop or give it to the committee and then have a workshop. Because whatever the decision we make is a long-term decision. I mean, it's not going to change next budget year.
Right, right.
Okay.
And just to clarify on what Carrie said, all the employees are informed of TCDRS. They're given very specific information about it. They're given their paperwork and books. We encourage every year during open enrollment for people to enroll, get online, claim their accounts, learn, run the numbers themselves. And we're always putting in flyers into the newsletter and sending out flyers to notify the employees. TCDRS does an absolutely fantastic job of putting on webinars that's available for the employees to go on, learn and understand what their retirement can and can't do for them and how to run the numbers and see what they could be looking at if they stayed X number of years. So I don't believe that the employees don't have any understanding of what TCDRS is.
Sheriff Mills, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to add one comment that we made several times here this morning about.
The people at home can't hear you. Can you stand at the
Can you
mic?
hear me now?
No.
I don't think a microphone's gonna change it.
No, we can hear you, but the Zoom participants can't.
My only concern is that we've made statements in here this morning that a flexible schedule of 410s wouldn't cost us money. And unless department heads in here have surplus employees, I'm going to challenge everybody to look at that survey.
Oh, yeah.
Unless the transfer station is going to go through to a Monday through Thursday schedule, road and bridge as well. You're either going to ask them to close down to the public, or you're going to ask them to work on a shorted workforce while they're here. If you're going to alternate your days in the week, Monday, Tuesday, whenever they're off, there's going to be an impact in the department. It's not fair to a department head to say it's not going to cost any money and then tell them they're going to work down an employee. And that's got to be a part of your study.
Can you talk to us about retention and recruitment and how the change in the vesting date from 10 years to 8 might affect you?
I've got employees on both ends of the spectrum. I do have people that are vested already that may be looking at the retirement, but by and large, most of mine and the problem I've had and experienced through the jail, the people that have left this year, I've got them all documented as to why they've left. Most was spouse relocation. Some got other jobs, heading up departments that we couldn't compete with pay wise. But
When you're recruiting new employees, does
very
retirement come up?
seldom does somebody into a discussion, excuse me, about our retirement benefits. They're not looking, I made the comment a million times in here. This county costs a lot of money to live in. People want to come here and they want to buy their $300, $400, $500 million home. But we're not in a position to provide benefits to people to serve those residents that allows them to afford to live here. My employees that survive here do it for one of two reasons. They have a professionally employed spouse that makes good money as well, or they're working my grants at 20 hours a week to supplement their salaries, which takes them away from their families and takes them away from social and civic deals to involve themselves in the community. It's a shame that they have to work 15 and 20 hours a week to pay their bills.
Extra.
The new employees are looking at what's it going to cost me for gas tomorrow to come to work. An additional day off, I don't think is going to sway them at all in a year. That's not a benefit to them. It's just one day they don't have to buy gas to drive here from Corpus, Portland, Ingleside, or wherever they're living.
So you're more interested in salary?
I believe my
wages.
employees are, yes. Is an adjustment to the salary scale to put them on a competitive wage, not just outside of here and to afford to live here, but within this county. You've looked at the city of Rockport's salary scale. Most people are looking at today. John's in a deal where, we're looking at retirement, at the benefits down the road, because that's not that far down the road for us. But for the people that we are hiring, we've hired middle-aged people. We've got some senior citizens as well. It's a broad spectrum, but we've never had a discussion that I can recall in 12 years of an applicant wanting to know about our retirement system. But the total cost of some of the options, I believe there's costs involved that we're overlooking. And I believe if you're going to say we can go to a flexible schedule, I've got a schedule that works well for my staff, but it's based on a 12-hour day. but it meets the requirements as well of the 86 hours in the reporting cycle for law enforcement, which is, we're in a different group of things for a lot of different reasons. But I'm going to say that if I was to see the survey results, a large part of my department's looking at an affordable way to live here. And especially if you gauge that and you said, if you were not working the grant, if you're not on Stone Garden or the old border store and making the extra money, where would your first pick be? You've got to gauge, I think, the response or the questions sometimes to the work groups. Might have an option to make the additional money.
And the sheriff and the sheriff's office and the jail it's like apples and elephants to road and bridge and transfer station, everything, because of the requirements just to get hired, number one. And also the y'all are on a different area than we are. And this is not a one shoe fits all.
So one size doesn't fit all. And the other bothered me for years. Discussed it recently with the auditor's office. Like our holiday schedules. We pay holiday pay based on what? When the county observes the holiday. What about the deputy that's working the actual holiday? He doesn't get paid holiday pay. It depends on where the schedule fell. Somebody that's not working on the actual holiday, but when the county observes it, draws the pay. Half of my group benefits, half of them don't.
Is that something you don't have the authority to change on your own?
I didn't know that.
You'd need Commissioner Court.
I didn't know that.
Yes, sir. When we move it, it moves where if you observe on Monday instead of Sunday, but the deputy that worked Sunday, the 25th of December, draws regular pay.
Have you ever asked us to change that?
No, we haven't come with that, but it's, I don't want it changed from one to the other, but it should be inclusive to where that both sides are looked at and they are compensated for it, for the hours they work. The other thing that we're doing is ours is a 7x24 business. Scheduling becomes an issue sometimes when people want these comp days off and time off. We have to work around it, but I've got employees that have, they bank in excess of what the policy allows already. But we're different. But where I started was before we get the mindset that a flexible schedule doesn't cost you anything to go to 410s. That's, I think, going to be incredibly misleading. And I think part of the cost ought to be assessed as to what's the minimum staffing requirement at each one of these groups, and then figure in those additional employees you're going to need before you decide it doesn't cost any money.
Good.
Okay, thank you. So we have a second motion to table.
Call for the question.
Motion or roll call for tabling.
For the table motion?
This is on.
This is the motion to table. Right.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castro,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lava,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye. All right, item 17.
I move to approve authorizing the Aransas County Treasurer to sign a promissory note, disbursements request and authorization, and notice of final agreement between Aransas County and Prosperity Bank for the automatic extension of the expiration date for 1 year on the irrevocable standby letter of credit number 1973 from Prosperity Bank to Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, said extension going through June 1st, 2022. The letter of credit covers financial assurance of the Aransas County Transfer Station in the amount of $10,200.
Motion made. Second, Commissioner Casterline. Any discussion?
As I understand it, this is just a renewal of a standard. We're not changing the amount.
The amount is the same, has been the same for PCD requirements of what we cover. They're at like 5,700, I believe. So 10,000 is good enough to cover them.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney,
Aye.
Commissioner Castro,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo,
Aye.
Commissioner Lava,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye. Item 18.
I move to approve the extension of rental support to South Texas Family Planning and Health Corporation in the amount of $990 per month for the period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, to be paid out of the healthcare sales tax fund. The amount is already figured in the healthcare sales tax fund budget.
I second the motion.
Motion made and second, Commissioner Russo. Any discussion?
I would just like to really commend the organization for their outreach into our community, the number of clinics and educational classes that they've provided, and for the treasurer's office for working with this group.
I would also like to say that when the COVID vaccines came out, they jumped on board. They were one of the first. We had, I think, 100 dispersed, and they did 100. They did an excellent job of getting people in there, and booking the people that were eligible to get it at the time.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney.
Aye.
Commissioner Castlebar.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Lobach.
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous. Item 19.
I move to approve authorizing the county judge to sign a request for capital credits from the state for the unclaimed property capital credits for counties, and to allocate any such funds received to the literacy programs offered at the Aransas County Public Library per local government code 381-004.
Second.
Motion made and second, Commissioner Cheney. Any discussion?
Do we have a general idea how much this is?
And not really, it can be anywhere from $100 to $5,000. We've averaged about 5,000 last year, 7,000 the year before, 3,900 the year before.
Okay, so a few thousand a year usually.
And I believe that the literacy program does good with the money. There's a few other things that on their list of things we could spend it on, but the literacy program probably doesn't have as any other funding for donations or anything. So I think that whatever we get would be well spent there.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney.
Aye.
Commissioner Castlebar.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Lobach.
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye. Item 20.
I move to approve budget line item transfers.
I'll second that.
Hopefully there are none.
Motion made and seconded. There's none, right?
We have none at this
All
time.
right. Roll call.
Commissioner Cheney.
Aye.
Commissioner Castlebar.
Aye.
Commissioner Russo.
Aye.
Commissioner Lobach.
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye. Item 21.
I move to approve accounts payable and payroll liabilities.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, Commissioner Cheney.
Is there anything
I do
unusual
have
today?
some, I wanted to just bring to y'all's attention that in this, other than just the regular, we have a check for $436, and it's for J.M. Edmondson for the Cedar Bio project, as well as a check for $346,000, which is for the purchase of the RCA parking lot. We did also produce a check for $5,000 for the earnest money for the parking lot. That was right after our last meeting. Based on the contract, we did do that. We have 3 that are on this agenda that if court approves them, we can issue those checks if they are required prior to the next meeting, which would be the $37,694 for it was
Cedar Bio
match for supporting a SERPA grant. I don't know if we're going to need that or not. The Kepper. Okay. And then the 2 easements that David had on, the $20,000 and the 10, if those are required prior to the next meeting, we'd get those approved.
Becky, one question. After the amount for Cedar Bayou, what was the next amount down that was for the Workforce Development Center purchase?
The RCA, it is the $346,603.36.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And that's grant money paying for that.
Yes, sir. Those are both grant money. The Cedar Bio will be FEMA and the other one will be a GLO grant.
All right. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Do they need to amend their motion to include those separate items?
He made the motion to include the separate items.
I second it.
Second. All right, Commissioner. All right, roll call.
Commissioner Chang,
Aye.
Commissioner Castro,
Aye.
Commissioner Russo, Commissioner Lava,
Aye.
Judge Mills.
Aye, unanimous. But now it's time for department heads, elected officials, or heck, anyone, that's something to bring up you'd like to talk about. Now's the time to do it.
You do have a
Jack.
fees report for the court fees. Y'all should have received
Yeah,
electronically last week.
Jack,
Just if you have any questions.
any questions about the fees report? Okay, yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to make the court aware that as part of the American Rescue Plan Act that President Biden signed into law on March 11th, all employers were required to subsidize the full code, well, basically, let's put it this way, sorry. The law subsidized the full COBRA premium for assistance for eligible individuals, and it applies to all employers. So basically, anyone who qualifies for COBRA because of reduction in hours or involuntary termination, not if they quit on their own, but if they were terminated involuntarily, and they elect to continue COBRA coverage from from April 1st until September 30th, it is subsidized. The government itself is not going to pay for it right away. The employers have to pay for it, and then that we get a credit back through, and this act is, Alma could probably explain it better. What is the name of it?
On your,
You take the credit on your 941, which is your
Thank you.
employment tax, or there is a form, which I prefer not to mess with the numbers on the 941. There is another form that you just ask for the reimbursement.
Did we have employees that qualified for that,
We
Linda?
had 11 of them, and we have sent out the notices. We had 60 days to get the notices out from the time that it was take effect. And so far, we have not received any of them back, but we do have a potential of 11 employees that will qualify.
11 employees that had reduction in hours or loss of employment?
Correct.
Because of
And it
COVID?
goes back, the strange part about it is it goes back 18 months. So it did not go back just those who normally would qualify for COBRA within the last 60 days.
It's Cobra, not Cobra.
Anyone from 18 months prior to April 1st was part of that group.
But only if they lost hours due to COVID?
No, if they were terminated or they had a reduction in hours. We didn't have anyone that qualified for reduction of hours. We had 11 employees that were terminated involuntarily that did qualify. But it makes no difference whether they had signed up for COBRA, were on COBRA, or anything else over the last 18 months. If they had qualified at any point during the last 18 months, we had to offer it to them.
I see.
And there were special forms that we had to mail out. Those have been sent, so.
Some more smart thinking from above.
Yeah. Any other questions on that?
Any questions? Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
The leadership class will be some shirt. We have some shirts if anybody would like, some leadership shirts.
Okay.
So Valerie, are your trucks rolling? I know that's a big.
Yeah, we're gonna be spraying tonight, but the shirts are free.
And how many, and how regular are y'all spraying?
We hope to get as many days as we can.
What I did like, and this is not for publication, Mike, I heard on Facebook, somebody was telling me that the city's getting blamed for mosquito trucks not being out, so that's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read that too.
It was, were you that, it's about time? Response, yeah.
Judge, you're on the stage.
Oh, I forgot that.
I don't care.
All right. Nothing else. Do I have a motion?
I move to adjourn.
Motion made. Second. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Aye.
Thank you.